And hello, Céline. So yeah, for the second part of today's meetup, we have Céline Dedaj here as a guest.
Hello.
And we're going to do a little Q&A, and we're going to talk about quite a few things. We're going to talk about ADC, we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion, we're going to talk probably about a few other things as well. So I hope that's going to be very interesting and insightful. But before we go into that, I would normally introduce you, but maybe I think it would be better if you just kind of introduce yourself. Can you please tell us who you are, what you're doing,
Sure, thank you. Thanks for having me first. So yeah, as Simon said, my name is Céline Dedaj. I'm French, currently based in Malaga, Spain, but I lived in Berlin for 12 years altogether. And I'm currently here to get rid of my stuff. Finally, some things were difficult last year that prevented me from doing a move. Who knows what it was? But anyway, now I'm taking care of it. Yeah, me. I will try to make it short. My story. Originally, I studied political sciences in France because I've always, since I'm fairly little, actually really committed to maybe save the world, which is a bit too much, but that back in the day, it was already social mobility. Somehow it has been a topic that had always moved me, and that's why I studied political sciences. But then it was a bit too, it sounded like none of the jobs that I could do with this type of studies would be fulfilling. I wanted something more practical and less overwhelming. And I moved to Germany. And after a few years of trying things out, I ended up in what some people call human resources, specifically recruiting for technical jobs. And that's something I did for 10 years, more or less, all in Germany. And yeah, after a while, tech moved to Berlin. So I could join the tech crowd, not really as a recruiter. I started to be a Scrum Master and doing recruiting as well. And yeah, one thing after the other, I ended up working for companies that were doing stuff for musicians. And nowadays, I'm a freelancer, doing what I was doing for employers in the last years, but concentrating on the stuff that I know best, I think, and the stuff that I find more interesting or important. So yeah, I'm doing two things. I'm working with individuals on the one hand on their jobs and career, whether it's mostly when people want to change something and they feel stuck or whatever. And on the other hand, I'm helping conferences like ADC and companies diversify a bit. So it's not always the same type of person on the stage, in the crowd, or in management, or in technical roles. So I'm trying to help find ways to break out of homogeneity.
So
yeah.
Is that correct that people can hire you? Like if, for example, I have a company and you want to figure out how to make our team more diverse, or I'm an individual and I just really, don't know how to, get my career into a better place or how to get into the industry, then it would be possible to hire you? Is that
yes,
correct?
This is correct. This is how it works.
Okay.
So let's imagine you have a company. Who knows? You could hire me to do certain things, yes. And if you're an individual as well, I know that some of my clients are here tonight. Hello. I'm actually currently sitting at the place of one of my clients because in Berlin, because my internet collapsed at home. So yes.
Okay, so maybe we can you can share contact details or something like that, or we can put that I don't know, I think maybe.
Yeah. I don't know, should I show a slide with stuff? Or do you want to share it on YouTube, or?
What do you think, Josh? You're muted, Josh.
All right. I like Céline to give me sign language. However you feel comfortable to share it.
I'd rather share the slides.
Yeah.
Let me do that. And oh wait, I need to first make it full screen or whatever. It doesn't matter. Does it? So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. So this is my name. I use email a lot. So if you want to contact me via email, do it. Otherwise, I'm back on Twitter. My name is Spazieren denken. It's German. It means something with thinking while walking, because I like thinking while walking, and I also like working while walking. But these days it's not really easy. So yeah, again, I'm really easy to find on the internet. There's only one person named like that. So if you type my name in a search engine, you'll find me.
Okay, thanks, Céline. So that's really exciting because we have a lot of people here who got into music tech through like the engineering route. So it's like really interesting to have someone who's been in the industry for quite a long time and it's been doing quite a lot of great work, but kind of just not as an engineer, but in this like coming from this really different angle. So I think that's really quite interesting. And obviously you're working with us on ADC. So this last year and this year again, which is really exciting. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about what are you going to do at ADC or for ADC?
Sure. So to the surprise of nobody, especially after this little introduction, my role at ADC is to help create and run diversity and inclusion efforts. So this event is each year in every way a bit more diverse, a bit more inclusive. So it's basically at every step of the organization, every step of the communication, the people we reach out to, the way we communicate with sponsors, everything actually helps making it a less exclusive thing and a more inclusive thing. And doing that, more people with more diverse backgrounds are just feeling welcome. So yeah, basically what I'm doing is helping the rest of the team in every aspect, again, communication, organization, the way the call for papers may be submitted, or what kind of questions we ask to the people attending. Are there ways to add pronouns? Very important. These days, at least, a code of conduct helps. I hope that in the future we don't need codes of conduct, but nowadays it's still helpful. So having an appropriate one, having a process with so people can report incidents and being taken care of. Training the volunteers so they know what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and help speakers and attendees navigate these situations. So that's that type of stuff.
After that, we'll want to click.
What was that?
Sorry, what was that?
Oh,
that was me, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Feel free to chime in if you have a question. But yeah, other than that, I guess let's just continue. So yeah, thanks, Céline, for that. So I guess you kind of touched upon like diversity and inclusion being something that at ADC, for example, we need to address. We need to put resources into that. And I think basically the first thing we need to do, I think, is to actually acknowledge that there is a problem. And I guess ADC is just like an example. It's really music tech as a whole. I think we kind of need to just acknowledge that when we look at diversity and inclusion in that industry, that we're not in a great place right now. That, and I think we should really be open about that. That our industry is heavily dominated by cis white men, and people from other demographics are quite significantly underrepresented. And if you look at tech conferences, and like, for example, where if you look at the speakers, I think, for example, the number of women who are giving talks is constantly around 5%, and I think ADC is pretty much in there with all the other conferences as well. Whereas in reality, women are 50% of the population, but we have only 5% of them, more or less, giving talks at conferences. And at this very meetup, I mean, we also have to admit that it's not been very great, because I think before you, we had 2 women as guests on the show who were both on a panel that we organized last summer. We didn't actually ever had a woman here on the show giving like a technical talk with her own slides and everything.
And I will not be the one.
And you will not be the one. So, and I think if you look at, for example, Black people, they're also like vastly underrepresented compared to how many of them there are, and other other demographics as well. And even if I just look at my own career, I've been working at quite a few different companies and quite a few different teams, and there are not that many female developers. There are not that many Black developers, and I have personally worked with. There are a few, and usually they're amazing people. But in Europe, yes, I worked in Germany.
Nigeria, for instance.
I worked in Germany, the UK, and Russia and France. Like those are the 4 countries I've like professionally worked in, and there was also half a year in Spain. I've never worked outside of Europe, so I can't really say anything about the US. And also, that's not a country that I'm culturally very familiar with. But yeah, speaking about Europe, like at least personally, like my own experience is that demographics that are not cis white men are vastly underrepresented in our industry. So yeah, I guess we kind of just need to acknowledge that we have a problem there. And yeah, maybe we can, having established that, talk a little bit about what we actually mean by like diversity and inclusion.
Sure.
Specifically in our industry.
Sure.
So I think you have a few slides.
Yes.
Prepared.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if everyone attending tonight's show has really heard of these things in more detail. I'm not gonna go into deep, but just at least maybe show very few information about that, so we all know what we're talking about, or what I'm talking about. And I think it also sheds a light on the work that we're doing for ADC, for instance, related to these things. When we talk about diversity, for instance, it means that we want many people from many different backgrounds contributing to this. We do not want second-class citizens. So we really want that in the community, you don't feel like, oh, there's the in-group and the out-group, there's the exclusive club, and there's the others. And so that would mean that we work towards a better access for everyone to everything, actually, really, that is in and around the job. Opportunities, of course, ways of advancing in your career as well, means also that you are not a second-class citizen. And then when we talk about inclusion, is basically meaning that if you're here, you have power, you are listened to, and you feel like you belong. It's not like you're just there because somebody let the door open, but you really feel like this is your community. You're being seen, and you feel like you can have an influence on what's going on. So first off, so this is at least how I approach these 3 things currently, and that kind of taints my approach to what I'm doing for ADC, for instance. But yes, I do not have a lot of stats specifically about music tech in general, but I do have this one, which is which seems to be useful, like this 5%. In my now fairly long career in music tech recruiting and looking at these problems and wondering why and how that comes. I have noticed, many other people have noticed, that there's a high, there's a good reflection of who's at the end of the use of a product or a service and who's building it. And so when you see that you have 5% women in the sound engineering profession, and you look at the people who are building the tools, or you are looking also after the sound engineers, the people who are being seen a lot, yeah, that's matching. It's like there are, for instance, very few women, and because it doesn't make so much sense that half of the population is so poorly represented, people have started to wonder, is that actually how it should be, or are we doing something wrong? And the answer is, yeah, we're doing a few things wrong, so we can make them right. So yeah, this is a quote from the professor at Capital University. I have this number confirmation from October last year. Yeah, that it's important to start when people are learning the things, to have also professors and teachers from diverse background as well. So you start with education. So down the line, you have this reflection at every step of the process. And so, for instance, I have worked for Ableton for a number of years. And when I started in the product development or the dev unit, there was actually no women developer, none. And Ableton in 2014 was already quite a big company, right? And so actually that's why they hired me, to look at this situation and be like, what is wrong with us? Because this is not normal. And there were also what we figured out along the way, because no women is like the most obvious thing for this type of person who's already there. But then there was also no person of color. The LGBTQ community was actually already well represented, but it was not visible. There was also a narrow age bracket. The culture of everyone was the same. At least that's how it looked like, because everyone was kind of playing the game of this homogen group, like I'm part of this. And this was fairly exclusive actually. And one of my tasks then was indeed to look at it, figure out what Ableton could do about it. And that's how it all started actually, with this diversity and inclusion journey for me. So yeah, as I mentioned, I think it's still very much the case that the music tech industry is actually looking like it's made by the same type of people, for making stuff for the same type of people. And that's actually not so many people. So I believe lots of us in the meanwhile agree that that could be more people benefiting from cool things to play with or to work with.
Can I ask a question here?
Sure.
So, obviously, this is something that has been discussed in recent years quite a lot, just in tech, in the wider kind of tech world.
Yeah.
So I wonder if music tech specifically is like pretty much facing the same problems as tech in general, or whether we have like a more severe problem, or it's even worse somehow in music tech, or there's anything specific to music tech when it comes to this problem?
So it's not easy for me to answer that question. I'm not aware of studies that would make this comparison really. So, but I didn't only work in music tech. I worked before in web development and before industrial recruiting. So everything from logistics people to people, engineers taking care and building machines. And so tech in general has actually been the most welcoming in my opinion, but music tech specifically, I guess it's because of the well, I don't know if that's the next slide, but we all have this picture in mind when we think of music tech. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong about looking like Mr. Efron, right? It's fine, but also it's very white. It's very again, this age bracket is the same. It's a specific culture. Like I remember at Ableton, and I have seen that in other companies, but Ableton, you have like this kind of Berlin techno type of thing. And the more you talk to the colleagues and people around these jobs, the more you think, no, it's not like everyone is listening to this this type of techno, but we just have like a very, very specific picture. And when you have this very specific picture of who belongs to this group, then you keep hiring people who kind of fit the bill or could fit the bill. I've seen people changing their haircut and their clothing style, joining the teams because well, I think because they wanted to belong better, while they were actually coming from different places before. And I think this is also, how do you say? It's good to be able to be yourself at work. I'm not saying that you should show everything, but also it's more interesting to have more different types of people. And I believe that it feels different. I don't know if you noticed the difference between ADC before and after starting to do stuff like that, but
yeah, I mean, I have now quite a lot of thoughts on this. So first of all, this is like off script. I'm just reflecting on this, like as we talked about it, right? So as we talk about it now. So
well,
I think
it's great.
kind of reflecting on it now as a cis white man who got into this industry, I think that was partially also what was attractive to me, that, I was always kind of a bit nerdy, a bit like into music, into coding, not into the stuff that all the other people were into. And then I found a community where people were like me. And so, I think it seems like it's a little bit of a self-reinforcing kind of thing.
It is.
And then if for someone like me, it's like really easy to adjust in such a way that you like blend in naturally with this like very homogeneous culture. And for someone else, it might be just a lot more effort to blend in, or even impossible to blend in just because of the way they look, or, things like that. And so, I think this monoculture, I think, is not really a good approach, but maybe it's just kind of, that's how it kind of evolved. That's how, I don't know, that kind of reinforces itself a little bit. I think like the other thing that you said is, I think there are quite a lot of studies on the fact that having an actually diverse team with an actually diverse culture, is actually beneficial for everything, for like actually the quality of the products that you're building, and like how well you're building them, and how much money your company is going to make. There's plenty of studies that say that diverse teams and culturally diverse teams and demographically diverse teams and companies perform better.
I mean, it's similar to the concept of testing and code review. You have to kind of have another way of looking at your stuff, so it's better. Although, because if you're just within your own brain, and if everyone is actually has the same brain kind of, then you're just gonna have the same ideas and you're gonna see at the, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this also touches a little bit on the topic of accessibility. And I think this is something we should actually have a different meetup specifically on that topic, because it's another huge topic, which I think is quite important. But yeah, I think we kind of went on a tangent here a little bit. Not on a tangent, but do you have any more slides? Did we interrupt the flow somehow, or?
The slides were just there to have some things to show just in case it makes sense. But for instance, I know what the next slide would be. It was like, so that was ADC some time ago.
Yeah. Can I say something really quick?
Of course.
I'm going to come in off script as well. So as a person who's fairly new to this industry, I've only been in the industry 2 or 3 years. One thing that I noticed, especially when we look at this picture, is that most of the people that have been in this industry have been in for a very long time. So a lot of the people that you see here are people who have been doing this. A lot of them have been doing it since the beginning, kind of the beginning of modern music tech, in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, the 90s, when the VST plugin was invented. That was mid 90s, really. That's when it kind of making like live music on a computer really became a thing, right? It wasn't really a thing before. Like you could do like, I think Max MSP and things like that were around since the 80s, but not really in the sense of interactive real-time kind of stuff.
But it makes me think of part of a larger problem that I think, which is the threshold just to get into this industry for people, because a lot of the developers that have been that are working in the major companies that we know about are people. Many of them have been in there for a very long time, and they don't really move around a whole lot. But yet, I did a talk very recently for Columbia University, and when I did the talk, I was actually amazed how diverse the student populace was. Just all different backgrounds, and it was very exciting. And I was very surprised at the ability of these students. They were really putting together some amazing things. So I'm wondering if part of this, and I think that things like ADC and what we're trying to do with the audio programmer is part of this injection of new talent into the industry, really helping people to get trained. I don't know that the resources to actually get into this type of development were very accessible until probably the past couple of years. I think that was a big problem as well, because there are so many people that have messaged me and said, I never had any idea of what I needed to know or how to actually even get into this type of industry, how to become this type of developer. And I'm hoping that together that we can make even more changes in the industry. And as you can see from this slide, I think that
that's the new generation here.
Yeah.
Direction. Absolutely. I'll let you continue on.
Can I add something?
Oh yeah, please.
Yeah. I feel like definitely from my experience, well, first, like I still to this day like have yet to find somebody who looks like me, who does what I do, like both in terms of queerness and Blackness. And that, like, at first it was like scary for me because like not seeing that representation like made me and a few other people like doubt like if I would be able to be successful in the first place, which isn't logical because like, if I'll be honest, like I'm coming from graduating from Berklee College of Music, that should get you somewhere. And I'm still having these doubts about it, And so I think part of it is like looking back, like at when I was at school, it kind of starts early because you start seeing like women go into more majors that require like writing. And the tech heavy majors tend to be at the very least like cishet dominated, if not white as well, cishet dominated. And then as you go further on and through your years at Berklee, you start to see like these classes are mainly dominated by cis hetero men. And part of that is the culture of like what society tells us, like what we can and can't do based on who we are. And a lot of that also can be like classism a bit, because when you see people, especially like audio software engineers, typically have master's degrees at least. And if you don't, you went to a very good school where you got a bachelor's degree, and that requires, you know, a bit of money. And I think that's something that impresses me about Europe is the programs tend to cost less, and they tend to have more audio programming bases of them. And so I think that's something that personally, like I've heard a lot of people that I know say, like, oh, I want to go to Europe or like go to Spain and get my degree so I can actually learn in a place that is just a little bit more accessible, and then bring that back to the United States. So I think part of it is the programs in college. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
I mean, I don't think I would have studied if it wasn't free in France back in the, so I don't think I would have been able to study, because this is just, I'm the first generation, for instance, in my family, graduating school to go to university. So I'm really, I mean, Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of crazy to spend like thousands of dollars on this degree.
I don't think I could have. I mean, I don't know if I had grown up in the US, I would have, everything would have been different. I would have tried maybe to work 15 jobs at once to be able to have the money. I don't know, but I don't think I would have. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of paying for education or paying for healthcare, like as well, like is also something
let's
that's
not
very
go there
foreign to me. But let's not go there. Actually, I do have.
Okay, sorry.
I do have another question for you, Céline. So, so given all of this stuff that we just discussed, what can we do to improve it? What can we, as you know, people, developers, members of this community, and what can people like me, who are like very much like the stereotypical, you know, cis white man somewhere in this industry, do to actually improve things? Like, what can we do as individuals?
Yeah, and me as well, by the way, I'm learning every day. Yeah, I as you can see, because I have some slides, I have chosen 3 things that I think everyone can do right now to help making it a bit better for everyone. And these are these 3 things. I believe the first thing that is helpful is to make sure you do your own research, because there's a lot to learn, and if you don't understand certain concepts, even, you will not be able to really understand what's going on and help. And it's good to mention that it's not the job of underrepresented folks who are also and already marginalized to do your education. There's so much stuff on the internet. There are books there. I mean, this whole stuff is nothing new, really, despite the fact that music tech is fairly new itself. But the things that are making teams very white, the classism that Alex was mentioning, everything really, nothing new. So you can do your own research, and you're already going to go a step further. Then the second thing I would recommend is to try to have a hard look into the mirror and see where are your blind spots, where is my personal unconscious bias. If I think of gender, which are the prejudices that I have in my head, or the reactions to certain types of people just because of who they are and not because of how they behave or what they do. But yeah, gender, religion, ethnicity, family status, age, education, how people move around, think, how much they earn, who they love, what their work is, whether they're native speakers of English or, I don't know, French, for instance, in France or not, where they're actually based. There's also sometimes some kind of weird northwest or east, northwest, north-south, and west east racism, stuff like, or xenophobia, where what is in my head that, if I think about it, is actually just prejudice that is helping a ton just to make painting that picture. So I would recommend that, making unconscious bias conscious. And the third thing I think would be a great first step would be to try to become a better ally to people who are marginalized. So that would be sponsoring them, championing their work, amplify their voice, advocate for them when you see an opportunity, learn from them. If you can, yeah, I mean, while just being here, you can learn from them. They don't need to educate you, just look at them, look at what they do, listen to what they say. Speak up if you see something that is not cool happening to them, or when people are talking about them, stuff like that. So yeah, I think research, unconscious bias, and allyship are three things that I think everyone can do right now. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Anything else that you do like to add, maybe?
I think that's a great list.
Okay. Then
it also means that I still have a lot to learn about all of this stuff.
Yeah, well, again, I am privileged and I am biased and I am all the things that everyone else is as well. But every day I'm trying to be a bit better with myself and with everyone else. And so it's a process. We're never done. We're never done. So please call me out as well if I say or do something that is not cool.
Yeah. Do we have anything?
All right.
I don't know. Cool. I may have some questions for Timur if I'm allowed to.
Okay, go for it.
Because it's a conversation, right? Why should I be the one always being drilled? No. So I don't think we've specifically mentioned that yet, but I personally, and I think other people doing similar work than me have noticed this as well, something has changed in the last years. In the way people approach diversity and inclusion, in the way people are talking about it, in the collective awareness, the needle has moved. And so this is why, for instance, I can live from doing that work. A very few years ago, nobody wanted to pay for that stuff. But now there's some kind of realization that it's important, it's even critical to a company's success in the meanwhile. And also, it's more interesting. It makes work more interesting to have more diversity and inclusion. And so I wanted to know from you, Timur, and maybe from the others in this round, if you have noticed as well something changing in the last years because maybe of the diversity and inclusion efforts that you've seen here and there. Did you see positive changes and how, Timur?
So that's a great question. I think obviously I have seen that this stuff is being talked about more, but I have to kind of admit there's one thing that I did not notice, which is that there's actually significantly more diversity in places like conferences, meetups. Like, for example, if you look at the lineup of this meetup or the ADC or other tech conferences, that hasn't really changed very much. If you look at how many percentage of, engineers are women or come from, other kind of underrepresented backgrounds who actually have like senior jobs in the industry, how many percent? I have not noticed that has actually improved. So you could say, well, we're not doing a good job, but I did notice one thing though, kind of recently, which is there is more interest about this topic, specifically from more senior people, from people who are like CEOs, CTOs, like very high up in the management of companies, where like a few years ago, they would be like, oh, stop talking about politics. This is like uninteresting. Let's focus on like getting stuff done, which is, I don't personally think is a very helpful attitude. But like in recent years, like I noticed more people, very senior people who are like control the money, are like, oh, yes, you want to, improve the diversity of this team or this event or this thing. Let's pour money into this. Let's make this happen. And, or like at least show more interest than before. So I didn't notice like a big change in like the actual numbers, but I'm kind of a bit more hopeful that we will get there now.
That's maybe the not so good news about this work. Is like it's what I'm saying to my I don't want to say corporate because I don't work for big companies, but like companies, for the companies, that's what I'm saying to the companies I work with on these topics, is that it would be kind of foolish, unfortunately, to expect results within half a year. I mean, you can't. There are so many things that are gatekeeping, and so preventing people who are there actually and waiting for their chance to join. Not so many, but they are here. It takes a lot of time to do what it takes to have people come join, and that's diversity, having diversity, and second, having them stay. That would be inclusion. And so, again, that's the not so good news. It takes time. The very good news is it's the right thing to do. It's whatever your political stance or your beliefs, or whether you see a responsibility or an ethical commitment to this or not, you're better off doing the work anyway. Whether that's because the quality of the things you're producing, a product, service, will be better. The work will be more interesting, and you won't have any reputation situation like Google had a few years ago, or most recently Basecamp. I mean, you're better off doing the work, so it's the right thing to do anyway. So I think it's a bit like doing something for the environment, being mindful of the planet. I mean, whether you believe or not that humans have a great impact on climate change, it is better to use less resources to get to the same thing, right? So it's always the better choice to be mindful of nature, be mindful of other people. And so yeah, it takes a while, but that's maybe another piece of good news, is that I do not recall in the many years in the meanwhile of doing diversity and inclusion efforts, unless it's not done right. But if you're doing things right, you're taking the time to do things right, it always pays off. Again, maybe not immediately, half a year, maybe a year and a half after, but then it pays off. There is nothing that is not worth investing. Maybe I'm biased, but that's what I think.
I really loved your analogy with the with climate change and like taking care of the environment. I also actually, from just my experience of working in teams, I also noticed that whenever people were joining the team who were from like not the stereotypical background, like I obviously not gonna like name specific companies, but like whenever like people joined from these like underrepresented minorities, I did notice that the whole team, the culture got better, things changed, and I think I can really get behind this idea that there are like two aspects to this, right? There's like this kind of ethical, moral side to it, and kind of just the business side, right? So on the one hand, you could argue, and this is my personal opinion, like that if people like, big proportions of the population are being ignored, are being excluded, are being basically kept away from decision making and power, that is just kind of wrong on a very fundamental, like moral level. But if you don't want to have that conversation, then just from a pure business side, as I said, there are studies that say that if you have more diverse teams and if you have people from minorities who are included and stay longer, you're going to have better products. You're going to have, better culture, more innovation. This is all like scientifically proven. So it's better for business. You're going to make more money if you do this,
Yep.
right? So
this is correct. You're going to get more money, and it's going to be easier to hire people, which also, if you have a tech company, is kind of relevant, because you already have a hard time if you don't even include everyone, but just a very, very narrow part of the pool of candidates. Then, well, bad luck, right? Yeah.
I'm curious what Alex has to say about this. Do you have any thoughts on this, Alex?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so I've been in tech since about 2016. That was my first internship. And I have noticed, like, I think a lot of companies, their problem isn't necessarily diversity, because when you go to a company, you might be like surprised that there's more representation than you would think, because there's not a lot of inclusion, there's not a lot of equity. Because when you think of like, especially like in the music technology industry, it's very cis hetero white, but you go to some of these companies, it doesn't look like that, but you would never know that because that's not really broadcasted. And then sometimes like people that are from underrepresented backgrounds don't tend to stay at that company for like many reasons, but like part of that is inclusion, because you should be making a reason for people to want to stay at your company, because one, that's cheaper for the company, two, it's better for the product, as you said. And so like I have seen like a shift, because before, I think probably like in the last year, like before that, it was either like there were people that were interested in like improving the situation, but it seemed to be like more of like on the back burner, like it wasn't like an important like topic for companies to kind of touch on. Now, like you go on LinkedIn, everybody's like, we need diversity, inclusion, we need real diversity, real inclusion. And it's really cool to see, because like personally, like I just didn't think it would happen, and like now we're like,
me neither, to be honest. I was really, I took a sabbatical was it already 2 years ago, maybe? Yes. Because of that, I was like, you know what, it's not gonna work. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm done. But here I am.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be back.
Yeah.
Because the needle is moving. Something is happening.
And like you said, it's kind of like a slow burn. Like you can't expect it to work out in like even like half a year to a year. But I feel like in 5 to 10 years, we will see a change. Because like, as you guys said, you showed that slideshow or you showed that picture with all of the students. And that was definitely very different from my classes in college. So just that right now shows that there's a change happening.
Cool.
So what else do you think that we could do? What are companies that are hiring developers? What are some steps that they can take?
Oh,
awesome. Oh, I can
please,
share a little.
please.
Yeah. I won't go into details about the companies, but I know like in different interviews that I've been in, it was clearly skewed. It was like, have you used this expensive, technology before? And it's like, how else would I do that unless I had money being thrown at me, And it's like, I'm like literally just in that situation because I went to Berkeley, because otherwise I wouldn't know what these things are or how to use them. And so I think like kind of scaling back and thinking, okay, like not asking, have you used this set of tools, but have you used a compressor and equalizer period at all? Can you explain to me how that works? You shouldn't have to use that the tools that are released by, you know, said company to get hired at the company, because that's kind of, that's like a clear, like, barrier for a lot of people. I think there are certain things, like in the audio technology industry, college education is pretty much required. So I think if the country kind of like scales back and we kind of like address how to make education more accessible, that'll really help too. In terms of like culture fit, I think if like certain companies are based around, like especially music companies can be based around genres. If we kind of like explore how those tools are being used in like a variety of genres, and actively recruit people that are just maybe not, you know, specifically into rock or like techno or something like that. If we just look at, hey, what are the leading people? Because there are people that are making like Billboard records and like Reason and stuff, you know, and they're like charting, and we should be able to like, these companies should be able to reach out to those people and say, hey, we want to get more people that produce and listen to the same kind of music you do. How can we do that and attract more, or not really fans, because these people will be fans kind of regardless, but add more visibility to those things. That's what I'd like to see, because there's a lot of people in LA, they're kind of waiting for these companies to like reach out and like ask them to do like some kind of like tutorial or something. And that would be really cool, because these people, they're making like all the songs you listen to on the radio now. So
maybe someone's listening right now. Hello,
yeah,
talk
maybe
to these people.
Yeah.
Can I add something? And obviously, I'm not the person who's like most experienced about this here on the call, but I think the way you write job ads is also really important. It's something I had to learn the hard way as I was, you know, hiring developers. That if you have a job ad saying we are looking for rock stars and like every Friday you're gonna get free beer, you know, you're probably not going to attract, you know, all the people you want to attract, who, you know, could be really good engineers and could propel your project forward. So I think that really matters, how you just write job ads, I guess, and where you reach out to. This is something I'm actually struggling with. Like, where do you find people? You know, like what are the websites or like social media networks that you advertise in? Because you, as a white man, I always fall into this trap that I always fall back onto like the network that I already have, which is also very dominated by other white men. And so like it's very difficult to kind of actually, you know, tap into like different networks that you haven't been part of.
May I jump in and then go on with this idea? I think you're talking about reaching out to communities that you're not part of, but well, I have a few things about all that has been said just now, but I think one of the things that is important for companies, especially, or organizations in general that would like to reach out to groups where you have people with more diverse backgrounds than in their current groups. I think it's important to remember that community work is work and it's contribution based. I think a mistake that a lot of companies have done in the past when hiring is just spam everyone with job offers like you have never heard of these people before. They're dropping their offer and then leaving again. And they don't have anything to offer. They only want to take away from your community. So my recommendation is, if you want to reach out to groups that you have not interacted with, especially those before, it's important to ask or figure out, what is it that I could do for them? Not what I can get from them from this group, but what can I do for them? And then they will come. If you do something for them, the right thing, because you get to know them and they told you even better, then that's working. But just reaching out and just say, hey, come work with me, that's kind of intrusive. there's that thing. The other thing that I want to add something about, if we have more time to talk about hiring, because that's kind of my specialty.
Yeah, as much time as you need.
Of course, you'd say that.
No, I'm genuinely curious as a person who,
of course,
gets involved in the hiring process.
Of course. Well, there's something that has been mentioned already somehow, is the question of cultural fit. Of course, you want to hire people who share your values, of course. Of course, you want to work with people you don't want to choke during work because they kind of get on your nerves all day. But there is a difference between what we think is cultural fit when we're actually looking at and looking for your soulmate or your twin brother or someone to get to grab a beer after work with. Again, it's something different. This is not a cultural fit. It's just like you're looking for friends. I mean, it's fine to be friends with colleagues, but that's narrowing again the type of people who are welcome in the team. So maybe you're better off hiring someone you will probably not hang out after work with, but during work, it's gonna be super interesting and fruitful. That's the better choice. So I personally would avoid talking about cultural fit for a company, but more like a good addition to the team. We're not looking for someone who's a good fit, but a good addition to the team. What is missing? This is why you're hiring, right? Something is missing, and looking for that, exactly that, and not like more of the same. And then
thank you so much. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, keep going. Keep going. Oh.
And the third thing was also, I think, is worth mentioning, because it also has been mentioned. There's plenty of things that you can do, but the thing with the younger generations and gatekeeping. If you look at the current job market right now, you barely see any junior opportunities. Like, everyone is looking for senior positions. I mean, when you're inside, it's all understandable why people do that, but it keeps some people away from these jobs. And are you really do you like that? Now I'm also talking about what Alex was referencing before. Do you really need these people to know this and that and that and that already? I mean, technical skills are easy to learn. It's something you can learn it. Most importantly is the way you communicate, the way you approach teamwork. Will you be able to work with this person at all? Yes, no. Do you want to do it? Do they want to do it? Yes, no. Okay, what skills are missing? Then invest in that person. If you really want to work with them, invest in that person. Like, not having entry level or even mid-level positions in your company is preventing you from becoming more diverse. You're gonna get to that picture I showed you before, like Josh said. It's just like people who've been around for a long time. It's the same group of people, always the same. So if you want new people, give them the chance. Let them grow with you. Yeah, maybe that's enough for today.
Yeah, thank you for making this so clear, because I have definitely seen this unfold, and I have actually fallen into this trap myself as well. Like,
everyone.
Okay, I need a few engineers. I'm just going to hire a bunch of friends. And, it can work, but it's just seems like it's just not a very sustainable strategy, or not a very kind of long-term strategy.
And also, again, people can learn. I mean, why should they have learned before? I mean, it's not like you need 10 years to learn a thing, right? So, I mean, so let them just learn with you.
Right, and this is actually, I guess, another thing that happens at companies when you do that. When you do hire a junior developer who is really passionate and really kind of good at learning things, they're going to stay with you for a very long time, and they potentially, if you do it right, that you might get these people who will make a huge difference and will stay with you for a long time. So it's kind of like an investment that might turn out to be quite a good investment.
Again, if you start giving, they will come.
Yeah.
It's like in every relationship. Just be generous be kind, be nice, be whatever, and they will come. The right people will come.
That is really good advice. I guess
it's
the
that
hardest
easy,
thing is
and it's that difficult.
the hardest thing is always to admit that you're doing it wrong, right?
Yes,
This is kind of like,
I think that's the main problem, really. It's the main problem. But
so that's kind of,
once it's there, things fall into place, really. It's nice. It's really nice. I recommend
it. So I guess that's what we kind of collectively have to do, to just kind of admit that they've been doing this wrong.
Well, that's the first step. And then do the work. Do the work. Changing habits is the hardest thing, but it's worth it. So
I got a little something to say on that, actually.
Yes.
As a person who actually I interact with multiple companies on a daily basis about their job requirements, job specs, job descriptions, things like that, these companies are just, a lot of them really have it all wrong in terms of their job descriptions, in terms of what they're looking for, in terms of what type of fit. I get these job descriptions that are like, they must have worked precisely on this type of product, precisely on this type of tech stack, precisely on this type of technology, must have this many years experience, must be located in this particular area. It's too much. It's too much. And finding some of these candidates is literally like finding a needle in a haystack. And it really concerns me, actually, when I see, especially with larger tech companies, where the only jobs that they really give us to pitch are senior level positions. And I get concerned, because I think, well, where's the core of your team? Because all you have, so what you're saying is that all you have is senior developers that are working in your company? Because that doesn't sound like a very functional team, because I wouldn't want to be paying, as a person who contracts developers out ourselves for development, I wouldn't want to be paying a senior level developer top dollar to be putting sliders on a screen. That's something that I would want a junior developer to be doing. There are things that junior developers should be doing that from my perspective, senior developers should be thinking about the really tough problems, the really difficult things to solve that nobody has solved before.
And teaching the younger ones.
Exactly. And cultivating the younger.
Age doesn't matter, actually. Yeah. The less experienced ones.
Yeah. I think I'm the oldest person here, but by a mile. But yes, cultivating the other talent on the team, and it really concerns me, because I see a lot of companies that come that say, we only want to hire somebody that's worked on a DAW before. You know how few people that is in the world? That's so there aren't a whole lot of people that have worked on a DAW, or that have worked on a contact level sampler before. I mean, there are probably maybe 20, 30 people in the world that have actually done that.
Well, the funny part about that is that having observed hiring teams for a number of years now, is like, even the quite experienced people who have been hired, when they're reviewing the hiring processes that we put in place for new hiring rounds, they're like, I wouldn't get hired I'm already inside, but if I was to pass through these tests, I would probably fail. And you're like, so why are you doing this? Again, I understand why, but.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me a lot, like, I know that none of the other people in the group probably know anything about American football, but one of the big things with when it comes to drafting new players from universities into the professional leagues, is that they actually view those players as like kind of raw candidates, raw talent that they have to train up on the job. They're not going to just step in day one and just be able to just fire away. I mean, especially in tech, because the amount of technologies and the amount of things that you need to familiarize yourself with is just too much, and the chances that you're going to hire anybody, junior, mid-level, or senior, that's going to have experience on the exact tech stack that you're working in is probably pretty small, actually, because every company has their own quirks, their own ways of working. And so you're going to have to do some type of training, no matter who you're hiring. And it just surprises me how high the expectations are in some of these companies. I really think that they really need to, I think I gotta take off my hat to Ableton. During my time there, just walking around the headquarters and seeing the different people that were walking around there, and I mean, that's really giving commitment to you, Céline, for your work there during that time, because I thought this is exactly how it should be. There's young talent, there's other talent that have been there for a number of years, that have been longstanding, probably as been there from Ableton V1, but also helping out the juniors, and the way that people like Neil and Ian helped, or were helping out other people along the way. The way that the company even helped me during the time that I was actually under contract, I thought was really awesome, and I really resonated with that. And I thought, why don't all tech companies work like this? But we had last year, we had Spencer Rudnick, who was a developer. I think they were on the live team, and it never even developed in C++ before they joined the team. But
well, there are other really, I think it's fair to say, star developers in the mean, like who are famous from the people I know in Ableton. That's the same. They thought they would never get hired, and they had to be like dragged into the hiring process. Like, come on, you do it. And now it's like, this person is so influential in teaching coding, teaching music tech. It's like, again, give their chance to people who are not like the current team. No, don't look for yourself. Look for the others.
Ali Samai actually makes a great comment. It says, I think one of the most important things to look for in hiring is motivation, especially supreme motivation for learning and interest in the subject. I think that's a fantastic comment. Capacity to learn, I think, is so underrated, that I think a lot of companies just like I said, I think a lot of companies really miss out on that. A lot of great talent.
And the capacity to learn doesn't depend on your gender or your religion or any of these things.
Motivation, indeed. Motivation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And support. You need support. Again, I'm coming back to this, but I don't know. Maybe it's a lot. There are so many topics, but like I'm suspicious that a lot of companies are reluctant to hire junior people because they don't trust themselves to do a good job at teaching. They don't even dare to make the room for teaching. Like, oh no, people should be able to take care of themselves. I don't want to, but that's a mistake, I think.
Well, I think there's another thing that specifically in the music tech industry, or even more specifically in the plugin making industry, which is like a very tiny sliver of audio, right? It's a very, very specific, narrow kind of sliver of like audio programming. And damn it, what was my point? Yes, so you have a lot of companies that are really tiny. You have like 2 people, 3 people companies. And then you want to hire like the 4th person, right? Or the 3rd person. And you don't have that much money. You don't have like huge venture capital behind your back. And you're not like a big company like Ableton. You're like a tiny little shop. And then yeah, it's hard to sell like, oh, let's hire a junior developer, because you're like, you know, we have this release to make. We need like more people who can just hit the ground running. And it is kind of a fallacy, as we discussed, but it's just like really difficult to, in practice, you know, to do this if you're like a small shop.
Yeah, I don't have all the solutions, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but do you think? I mean, going back to that, Teamer. Do you agree with me on the idea or my summarization that people that are senior developers shouldn't be doing the trivial things like making sliders and doing the trivial stuff? Wouldn't that actually burn more money for the company than do good?
Yeah.
Because not only is the senior making the sliders and doing the trivial things, if they're doing that, they're not thinking about the problems that I need them to be thinking about, which are the difficult problems. Yeah, so it's probably maybe saving money to hire a junior who's able to do some of the trivial stuff. Then the senior kind of cultivate that person along, but also think about the things that they need to be thinking about, the tough problems.
I think I totally agree. I think that's a great point. I haven't really thought about it that way, but now that you say it, like even in this like very small shop example, you will need someone who's making sliders, you know? And so, you know, maybe that's a good argument, like for people who are otherwise reluctant to hire junior developers, because they say we can't really afford this, you know? Which actually is the right thing to do.
I wouldn't use the word trivial though, in any situation.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I would say
because that's again saying, oh well, that's, you know, that's not valuable.
Yes,
and also it's easy. If you're
I'm sorry
a junior
if it came
person,
across that way. Yeah, it's definitely not what I meant. So thank you very much for like calling that out. This is not how I meant that. Yeah.
Yeah. Nor I. Yeah, but I guess that there are certain problems, I guess, that coming out of university, I would hope that a junior developer would have the skill set to be equipped to solve those problems.
Yeah, I think everyone got the point.
Problem set, I guess, is a better.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. So Zolt from Native Instruments, thank you for tuning in. Zolt says, my preferred metaphor for making senior devs do trivial tasks is hiring race car drivers to drive city buses. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Yeah, fantastic. I think this is a great discussion. Yeah. Anything else we want to talk about?
Well, I had another one, but that would be maybe that's also a good way to close the conversation, unless you want to talk more. But yeah, I think it was a lot already. So I mean, again, if you want to reach out and talk more about this, I can reshare my contact details. Otherwise, maybe shout out to the hash include project in the C++ community, which I'm learning every day, every project from, because there's a well of people who know, people with experience, people who care, who take the time to help each other out, figuring this all out. And
can I just
using this opportunity to tell them how much I love them, and thank you so much for everything that you're doing for the C++ community and for everyone else, because people like me can learn from you.
Yeah, can I add just briefly to that? Yeah, I think hash include is an amazing community. Like you can find their website at includecpp.org.
They're on Discord, by the way.
Yeah, and they have a Discord. And I think this is actually something that you can kind of learn from them, because they're like the C++ community. We are the music tech community, but obviously there is a bit of an overlap here. And, you know, I had so many conversations there about like, hey, how do I, you know, for example, like what are these like pronoun stickers like with your pronouns on them, and why do people wear them at conferences? What does that mean? Or like, oh, I'm a speaker, I'm making slides. Like, how do I make, like, is there something I can do to make them, better for like visually impaired people? Do I need to like change my, and then you're going to just ask that question. It's going to be like several people who are being like, hey, I'm a visually impaired person. Hey, I'm a colorblind person. Let me tell you what you can do. Let me, give you these 20 links where you can read more about this, or like why you should say guys, on like, for example, again, like there's like a huge website with all these links, and there's like, I don't know, they're just amazing. I'm learning a lot from them. And I wish we had something like that in the music tech community.
Well, we can do it. That's the beauty of human things, is like, we are humans. We can do it as well if we wanted. We could.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Let's do it. Maybe not that huge that rapidly. I think the C++ community is slightly bigger.
Just a tiny bit.
But we can start somewhere.
Well, I see quite especially in the audio programmer Discord lately, we've been seeing quite a few women, quite a few people of color that have been joining the group. And I think there's definitely capacity and that I think it would do well. So I'm up for it.
Cool.
Great. Any other thoughts? Anybody?
I don't think my brain has any thoughts anymore at this time of the day.
Alex, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to reach out, like if anybody wants to connect. I put my email on the YouTube chat, as well as I'm Alex Mitchell, 2 X's, 2 L's on LinkedIn. If anyone wants to reach out.
Fantastic. And after this is over, I'll be sure to put all of these links in the video description as well. So you'll have those there for your access.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, thank you. I got to say thank you to Teamer and Céline as well for offering to do this talk. I'm really humbled and
Anytime.
to have you on the channel and
Anytime.
and that I'm really intrigued and encouraged by this open discussion. Yeah, I gotta say that in the past, I've always I haven't been avoidant of these types of discussions on the channel, but I've always shied away from them a little bit because because sometimes they can be controversial, can't they? They could be these things get talked about and they aren't necessarily the easiest things to talk about. So I want to say that I'm appreciative of both of you for encouraging us to do this, and I wanted to be the first of many. I want definitely to be something that we should talk about more.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you very much as well, Alex, for your time as well. I think it's been very insightful.
Absolutely.
Nice meeting you.
Hey, you too, Celine.
Great. So I think that's it. I'm just looking at the last comments here. We have one question from Phasic. Any advice for those who have worked in the tech space wanting to make a slight career direction shift towards music tech? I'm a web, Linux, and DevOps engineer wanting to get into music tech. So I think I could take this question if nobody else wants to take it. So this is a question that I get commonly asked by people who are looking to get into music tech. The biggest tip that I could give anybody that's looking to get into music tech at any level is you have to have something that works. You have to build some stuff that you have on your GitHub profile, that you have in your portfolio, that shows that you have some sort of capacity to actually do the job, because that's what's going to help get you in the door. Normally when companies come to me, they're asking for a developer of some ability, and I say, there's this person, Josh, maybe they'd be a good candidate for you. The first question that they always ask me is, what's the person done? What's the person created? And if you have some type of portfolio, it could be just simple stuff that you built in Juice, even just following the tutorials that we've done here on the Audio Programmer channel, building a simple sampler, building a gain dial, things like that, that will help get you in the door for sure. So yeah, that would be my advice. Build simple things that work, that you can show, like a portfolio, like if you were an artist, and somebody wanted to hire you as an artist to draw something, the first question that somebody would say is, show me something you've drawn, right? It could be something simple, a little sketch on a pad. But if you say, I've never drawn anything, then that person would probably say, well, probably not really an artist, are you? So yeah, make simple things that work, is my advice.